talking with Larry Olivier. If I could say it very fast like that, it worked. You've expressed admiration for all kinds of people in the theater and in films, and you say that even as a kid you used to go to the movies all the time. And you said you even liked seeing Valentino.
Oh.
And he seems sort of funny to us now when you see him, but what for example, could you learn from seeing Valentino?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was magic, I think, in those times. Absolute magic. So were they all. Can you imagine what would have happened in 1920 if people queuing up to see Gloria Swanson or Valentino or any of them were told by the manager, I'm sorry, it's bingo tonight. It's been torn apart.
Where's that happening?
In England. It's more popular than the movies.
And they never show the movie? They just have the...
No, they have bingo instead. But imagine that 40 years ago.
Yeah. What about Brando?
What about Brando? There's a lot about Brando. First time I saw him, he went on as an understudy in what was the final performance of quite a short run, I think, of Catherine Cornell in Antigone, version by Anouilh, and directed by her husband, Guthrie McClintock. And the man who usually played the messenger on this one night alone was playing the chorus, and the understudy was playing the messenger. And I went to see this, and this fellow came on the stage. And I can only, he simply set it alight. And it was Brando. First time I'd ever seen him. I think it was the first time anybody had ever seen him. And very shortly after that, his qualities were discovered, needless to say. I mean, they have a terrific system of scouts for good qualities, and he was palpably a great star in the making. And he has, it's a dangerous word, I think, to use to do with our work, because I don't really like the word genius applied to the theater. I don't think the theater can quite cope with genius. I think it's too practicable a business to have to worry with genius. I think, if anything, the height of ambition should be to have a genius for practicability. But Marlon has the sort of genius, I think, that is able to play a genius. I mean, his Napoleon, I think, was immeasurably the best effort Napoleon I think I've ever seen. It was simply marvelous, simply because of his own particular quality of being so easily bringing a sense of genius to a character who was a genius. And also he's got an astonishing gift. I think he's a very, very remarkable actor. It's not always completely controlled, but on the movies, of course, he learns to be controlled. Actually, he'd hate to be called a technician, I'm sure, but he is one. A great technician.
Yeah. You make that distinction between a technician and a realistic actor?
Other people do. I don't, but other people do. Talking to Michael Caine the other day, I don't see that people saying, is it funny that my style and Michael Caine's style should ever be married together in one film? I don't think there's any difference in the style. I think everybody who's a professional actor has roughly the same idea. Yes, realism is not one thing and technique another, at all. They're both absolutely married. I think that the business of an actor is to be at one with his technique and with his emotion and with his absolutely true feeling and his absolute sense of realism. It must ride absolutely with technique as a jockey must ride a horse. It must be one animal. And to some actors you can say, if they're out of control or they're not harnessed properly, but acting, and one might say in one mood, is talent superbly harnessed. To some young actors who are raw, and a lot of people believe in talent and think that's the only thing that counts at all. It isn't. Something's called skill, but it's equally as important and more hard to achieve. And sometimes you say, you are a wonderful horse, but you have a lousy jockey.
Could you tell that thing we were talking about during the break of, it has to do with Chekhov and Stanislavski, discussing realism and...
Oh, yes. Well, I was awfully pleased to find, when I was doing Uncle Vanya at Chichester, for which that stage didn't lend itself to a very realistic set, and I had a vision of the play that only had one interval. I couldn't bear there to be more than one interval, which meant that you had to have a production of the simplest possible kind. And I found, I think, that your best help to Chekhov is to have one interval only. And I was fortified in this necessarily stylized production in these circumstances. It was necessarily stylized by a story of Chekhov, who went to see a dress rehearsal of some play, and the designer showed him in the days long before real door handles, real window handles were used, it was all painted. He said, look, Mr. Chekhov, that's wonderful. See, all these are all real. And you see the curtains and the cords around the curtains, absolutely real. You see the muslin, it's absolutely real. You see the window catches, even they're real. And Chekhov said, yes, very fine. But don't expect me to be too enthusiastic, because you must remember that the theater is an art. And you have a beautiful painting, perhaps, of a man by some great painter, Rembrandt, and that is a work of art. Now, if you cut out its nose and put a real person's nose in, the real person's nose would be absolutely marvelously real, but the rest of the painting would look idiotic. So don't forget that. And so that brought
the idea of someone sticking his nose through a Rembrandt does make that point nicely, I think. That's very good. Have you settled the Kipper's incident on the Brighton, on the train?
No, I'm afraid that's dead forever.
It is?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Yeah.
I took the train off.
The train
I didn't really have time to fight as manfully for it as I'm talking about the Brighton Bell. It's a famous train in England. It's rather like the 20th century or the Santa Fe, or I can't remember the name of the famous train to Philadelphia, but we've got several famous trains like the Master Cutler that goes to Sheffield, the Flying Scotsman that goes to Scotland, and this was the Brighton Bell that went to Brighton. And the Kipper was only something I complained of. I found the things that bureaucracy had played along so well and thoroughly that they couldn't give me any brown toast. And I said, I want some brown. They said, no, brown bread. I said, why not? They said, it's off now. We're not going to give you brown bread anymore. I said, well, what can I have? They said, bacon and eggs and tomato. I said, I don't want any tomato. They said, well, you have to have it or else pay for it. Doesn't matter. I said, can I have scrambled eggs? They said, no. So I said, what about my friend the Kipper? And they said, no, that was the only thing the press picked up. Of course, naturally, they only pick up the funny one, you see, and I said, Kipper.
Kipper's a funnier than egg.
Very funny. Became known as Lord Kipper, and then I had a telegram from the chief rabbi saying, welcome to young Kipper.
You've done such an incredible series of walks in your various performances. Is that one of the first things you work out? People talk about your walk as Othello, and then I remember your walk in other performances.
Now, it usually puzzles me for a long time, and I pick it up quite late on, unless I've made up my mind that that's the foundation for a characterization or something like that. And Richard, you have to because of the limp. But no, in this particular play, I think you'll think of that. I went to see James O'Neill, about Tyrone is meant to be James O'Neill. This is Eugene O'Neill's father, as everybody knows. And he played for about 20 years, The Count of Monte Cristo. I think he gave over 4,000 performances of it. And he also made a film of it, a 5-reeler film, in about 1914. And somebody heard about this 5-reeler film and jumped in quick with a 3-reeler. So by the time his film came out, everybody had seen it. It was very bad luck. But we were able to see it, and in order to make a study of his acting and a sort of period. And he was perfectly fine, and obviously very satisfying to that period of audience. I mean, what we call bent wrist acting, a bit like that, but he was marvelous. And I noticed his walk was exactly like John Barrymore's walk. In fact, all the Barrymores walk. And I just had a little notion that maybe O'Neill and the Barrymores and everybody copied Edwin Booth. That's just a little notion I had. It probably all stemmed from him. Yeah. It was a way of walking with bent knees. It was acting, walking, if you see what I mean.
Could I ask you this? Some years back, we were all very worried about you and your health, and now you're in robust condition and doing difficult roles and all. And at the time, you had an operation. You apparently wanted to make it quite clear. You asked them to, in the press release, tell them that you had had a cancer operation.
Yes.
So why did you decide to make that?
Well, I thought it was encouraging. I thought I was always frightfully conceited, and I was certain I'd get better. And I thought, well, it would cheer people up if they knew that it wasn't so deadly or so fatal. Yeah. And it wasn't that I wanted to attract attention to myself, for once. It wasn't that. I just thought it was right to tell people if you had a disease like that, and I was very confident that I was going to get over it, and thank God I did. But it wasn't anything that I wanted people to realize, that it wasn't hopeless.
Yes.
That's all.
Yes. Was it at that time that you said, you were quoted as saying that you had tired of acting? Did it have to do possibly with the initial depression of that period?
Oh, I think so. Oh, I think so, yes. Though one feels that. Anybody, in any job feels that occasionally they'll die if they go on with it. Yeah. But then after a while, it's been like a horse without that famous harness I just told you. You know, you couldn't, be nothing to do.
Yeah.
I don't think it, sometimes there are times when I don't think it's quite the occupation for an adult, I must admit.
Why do you say that?
Find yourself doing such silly things sometimes, trying to be effective, and catch yourself out and you think that's a bit childish. I think that acting, I think the nearest approach, is rather bitter this, but the nearest approach I've got to a description of what acting really is that it's a masochistic form of exhibitionism.
Sounds very respectable even so, that way.
Thanks very much.
Would you lay a little Milton on us?
Little Milton?
Yes.
Oh, well, I only know rather a sexy bit, and I had to learn it for a film I made in Hollywood, way back in 1931. And I had great difficulty learning it, and as often happens, if you have difficulty learning something, it sticks. And I suppose I've thought of it once or twice since then. I hope I can remember it now. It's a sexy bit. For Milton, it's strange.
It's late at night.
And goes, much pleasure we have lost, whilst we abstain from this delightful fruit, nor known till now true relish tasting. If such pleasures be in things to us forbidden, it might be wished for this one tree had been forbidden 10. But come, so well refreshed, now let us play, as meet is after such delicious fare. For never did thy beauty, since the day I saw thee first, and wedded thee, adorned with all perfections, so inflame my sense with ardor to enjoy thee, fairer now than ever.
You do make acting seem eminently respectable, I must say.